Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. It's our NFL Draft Prospect Special this evening. We're going to highlight Rashod Bateman, wide receiver out of the University of Minnesota. So if you like the video this evening, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And joining me is the most talented guy as far as scouting in the National Football League. He started with the New York Jets in 1997. He worked with two of the greatest they ever done it, Mr. Bill Parcells and Mr. Bill Belichick. And he was the last person up for the Cleveland Browns GM job. My man coming from Key West, Florida, the very talented Daniel Kelly. So if you like the video this evening, please come in and share it as we're going to highlight Rashod Bateman out of the University of Minnesota. So Mr. Kelly,
yes,
what
sir.
do you like about Mr. Bateman? It's
There
your
is
fault, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Turner. It's great to be on again. There is a lot to like about Rashod Bateman. To start with, really nice size, 6'2", 210, someone that opted out and opted back in. He played in 5 games, 36 receptions, 472 yards, 13.11 average, 94.4 yards per game. To me, Mr. Turner, to our listeners, he is a cross, and I'm going old school on everybody, but he is a cross between Redskins receivers Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark, kind of a nice mix between the two. Bateman is a guy who's showing very strong leadership skills for a young man, switching to jersey number 0 to stand out and avenge what happened, according to social media, what happened to his mother and brothers back when he was growing up. He's dynamic. That's something I really want our listeners to grab a hold of. He is dynamic. And my scouting mentor who taught me, he said, hey, Danny, stick with the dynamic ones. And I see big things for this young man. In terms of him being a receiver on film, he has a nice release. He looks very fluid in terms of his movements and how he changed directions on his routes. He finds a way to get open. This is critically important. This is something that skilled receivers know how to do. He is very confident in his hands. He plucks the ball very well. He's competitive, and he can test well for 50-50 jump balls. These are balls that are up in the air that could go either way between a defensive back and between a receiver. He does very well in these situations. He's tough. He's courageous underneath in shorter routes. He's good in traffic. He glides. That's something I really like. He glides when he runs. He looks very graceful. He makes it look easy. The biggest thing I want to really stress to our listeners and to you, Mr. Turner, is what's called a YAC, right? YAC. Stands for yards after the catch. This is the biggest attribute he has going in something where he catches the ball and he makes things happen after the grab. He picks up additional yards after the grab. I personally have him higher on my draft board than I have Rondale Moore and any other receiver I've seen so far. I think his stock, I think this is somebody whose stock, is the closer we get to the draft, we're going to see his stock get higher and higher. And I think he's going to creep up more and more in the draft. Don't be shocked if he goes top 10. I think he will go to an NFC East team, perhaps Philadelphia at 6, perhaps even Dallas, the hat that you're wearing, at number 10, or maybe the Giants at number 11, but I do not see him slipping further than 19 at Washington. This is a guy who I really like, somebody who really resonated with me, and someone who I've been high on since the first time I saw him, Mr. Turner.
What I like about Mr. Bateman, and good analysis that you brought up, Mr. Kelly, I like him because we broadcast live out of Metro Atlanta. He's a Tipton, Georgia guy, which is about 3.5 hours from Georgia. And down in South Georgia, they play football. Yes, sir. They play football at a high level. Like the young man, Minnesota committed to him as a junior. When he became a senior, a lot of the schools came in on him, but he stayed committed to Minnesota and PJ Flick. I'm going to tell you, soundly technical as a receiver. As you said, you brought all the attributes about him, his size. You brought up, I love it, 6'2", 210. But what I like about him, he got an old school game, like Mr. Raymond Berry back in the day with the Baltimore Colts. Then he got that Roy Green type game. They played with the St. Louis Cardinals out of Henderson State. But I'm going to take you back further. You're going to like this one, Mr. Kelly. He reminds me of a young man that played at Wyoming that's from your hometown, Minneapolis, Minnesota. He didn't do well on the pro level, but he was one hell of a college receiver, Mr. Marcus Harris. Remember him? Perfect size, 6'2", 215. And then
I need to jump in a time machine for that one.
yes, sir. And then he got a little Drew Pearson with him, the Dallas Cowboys, excellent route runner. Then he comes from the University of Minnesota. He's had a lot of great football players, character guys, Carl Elliott, Bobby Bale, Marion Barber Jr., Ron Johnson, who's the last player to be an All-American in the wide receiver position, and Tyrone Carter. So I love everything about this young man. But like you said, the most important part that you brought up, leadership and maturity. And a young man that decided to stay in school and even play during this pandemic. So I like a lot about Mr. Bateman. And like you said, I think it's going to be an excellent pro. And I got him going mid to late first round. And he's a guy, when you look at the draft process, you know more about this. He's going to check the boxes as character, a guy that can be coachable, and a guy that played at a good school that's known for academics in the Big Ten. Final words about Mr. Bateman, Mr. Daniel Kelly.
I love him. I love him because, you know, when I watch film, here's the thing. There's so many guys who are just guys. There's so many guys you got to go through the motions and they're like watching paint dry. There's so many guys that play in the league that do not excite me. There's so many guys that play in college who do not excite me. This guy excites me. And I think he's going to bring that passion, that energy, and that playmaking dynamic ability to the team he gets on. And I believe he's going to make a big time splash. I wouldn't be surprised to hear his name in consideration next season as Rookie of the Year.
My final words on Mr. Bateman, I keep it very simple. Like the great Janet Jackson with her 1986 single, Control. Mr. Bateman is going to be controlled at the next level in the 2021 NFL Draft. If you like the video, please come in and share it today. Thank you, Mr. Daniel Kelly. And as I always end my videos,
welcome.
I'm Vincent Turner, a.k.a. the only son and the baby boy of Chester Nunez Turner from the 901. Thank you and be blessed for the rest of the week. We are 100 yards of football.
Thank you to our listeners.